no Kingpin at all this episode. Not even another body part. But that's okay, because re-enter Yelena Belova, straight out of the pages of Marvel Comics. Yes, those night vision goggles are a Yelena Belova trademark to help distinguish her from Natasha, along with the blonde hair, and do a great job continuing the spider motif. As Kate would say, the importance of branding. Speaking of branding, more braids too. Remember all the braids? It was wall-to-wall braids in the Black Widow movie. Blowouts in Avengers Tower, braids in the Red Room. They have a braid circle going there. Will Yelena switch to blowouts if she ever truly goes to the good side? We'll see. And on that note, I prefer the version of Yelena's mask where you can see her hair at the same time. And she can even still keep the braids, but I think that's a little bit of a better look. Perhaps not really functional, but it's the comic book movie. It's fine. Her widow's bite is still Sith red. I was actually thinking about this the other day, about how if you use red lights, you're basically a bad guy. You know, if you decide to put red lighting on your car or something. I think that's pretty funny. But anyway, signaling that Yelena has not fully gone over to the good side like Natasha, who changed hers to blue. She's like, whoa, I'm a good guy. But I think they were a little less cool when they were blue. And she never really used them. They were very, very well used here in this episode. And Yelena is working for Val along with John Walker, aka U.S. Agent. I don't think John Walker knows what's up with Val, but I think Yelena probably does. But, Yelena, doesn't have a strong moral code yet. I don't know if she'll ever get one. I don't know if she needs one. She's a lot of fun. I really like her. I'm so glad that she's back. But like John Walker, Yelena Belova is another Marvel comic book character who slips back and forth between villain and anti-hero with ease. You never know what you're going to get with either of them. John Walker because he's often very misguided, but Yelena because you just don't know what she's going to do. Now, Clint clearly didn't see the Black Widow movie because he has no idea that Val sent Yelena to kill him, telling her Clint is responsible for Natasha's death. It just occurred to me, maybe, Yelena will decide not to take the shot just as Clint decided not to take the shot with Natasha. Oh, that would come full circle. That would bring a tear to my eye. But anyway, this episode puts Clint actually in a similar position to Yelena, and maybe even John Walker, in that he's not a hero trained to help people, but a weapon trained to hurt people. I think Nick Fury would bristle at that description, quite frankly. He'd be like, whoa, don't go telling people that. But anyway, with that backstory, it makes sense that Clint would be the one to gravitate to others who have hurt people but want to stop. Wanda and, of course, Natasha, the best shot he never took. Yes, we learned that Clint wasn't originally sent to recruit Natasha, but to kill her. And it was his idea to help her transition over to the good side, to get rid of some of the red in her ledger. He has some too, apparently. He seems to have a lot of red. Maybe he could do the same for Yelena again. And I gotta say, while Bucky has been my previous choice to lead the Thunderbolts in the MCU, who are quickly assembling, as you can see, and as I've heard and told you about, but now you can see the evidence for yourself. Because, Bucky has led the team in the comics, but so has Clint Barton. And perhaps that's who will lead the Thunderbolts in the MCU. I mean, the more you think about it, the more this show is priming him for that gig. I mean, Bucky already had his redemption arc. I don't know if I think Clint still is in the midst of his, and perhaps, I don't know if he's going to get it here, to be honest with you, at the rate that we're going, with only 2 episodes left. I mean, maybe Val doesn't even want to kill him. Maybe this is a test. Maybe she's trying to get his attention. And I'd say that sending the sister of his dead partner and best friend is pretty darn good bait. All right, now, speaking of comic book history, one of you gave me a fantastic idea. This is incredible. This is so great. This was a great idea, and wait till you see how I've run with it. So who does that watch belong to? Who does that Rolex belong to? Well, it seems that it might be a lady's Rolex. Now, Clint says that it belongs to a colleague of his whose identity is still secret. And if the watch were to be revealed, if it were to get out, it would give away that person's identity. And one of you guessed in the comments on my live watch along this morning, that it might be his wife, Laura's. Oh, that fits beautifully. Wait till you see this all laid out. She knows about the Rolex. In fact, She's quite interested in it, and Clint knows immediately what she's talking about when she just hints at it in their conversation. And she has the ability to track it herself without having to check with anybody else. And she seems quite savvy to the biz the more she and Clint talk during this show. She even does some investigating for Clint and succeeds where Kate couldn't. She and Kate even has access to a huge, Bishop security, although she did get locked out. And also, Laura speaks in fluent spy code and German, we find out. I think it's pretty clear it's her watch, and in fact, if you rewatch Clint talking to Kate about the watch, how many times are we going to say watch? We'll call it Rolex. If you rewatch Clint talking to Kate about the Rolex, it's his wife's. That's fantastic. Now, in the comics, Clint Barton is married. Well, actually, they end up getting divorced, so we'll see what happens. But Clint is married to fellow weapon Mockingbird. They never had any kids, so, obviously, the MCU is not, page for page what's in the comics. Now, many of you might be like, wait a minute, Mockingbird is a beloved character on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I believe there were some rumors about Mockingbird coming into the MCU, and perhaps those were misconstrued. It's not the actress from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Adrienne Palicki, right? But it's Linda Cardellini, right? That would be fantastic. I mean, Kevin Feige has cherry-picked from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, he brought over the Darkhold, but I don't think it was the Darkhold. I think, I think he's ignored. I mean, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was technically supposed to be in the MCU, but Kevin Feige has just really ignored it, even down to ignoring the whole Inhuman storyline. So I think he's influenced by Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I don't think it's technically in the MCU. So I think that Laura Barton is the witness protection name of Bobby Morse, right? AKA Mockingbird. Maybe Linda Cardellini will get to do some action. Maybe in a season 2 of Hawkeye, if not here. That would be very cool. All right, speaking of action, let's break down this fight, which was very funny, like the whole rest of this episode. I liked when he was like, who am I fighting then? When he thought he was fighting Echo on the rooftop. And when we just heard him over the comms, I thought maybe we were dealing with a shapeshifter or something. You never know in a comic book property. But it turned out that just one of them had a mask on. So he just assumed, never assume, that it was Echo. But there was a lot of humor in this whole fight. When Kate got stuck on the zip line halfway, her having to walk up the stairs to get back into the fight, I thought that was really great. And it was a cool rooftop fight, very comic booky. And that Kate can hold her own against not only Echo, but a Black Widow is not just impressive, but a little unrealistic. But we'll allow it, because Hailee Steinfeld is so great. I think Yelena's fighting style has the flippy flips of Natasha, but is smoother, even more dance-like, and she gets a lot more use out of the Widow's Bite tech. I thought that was great. I wonder why. I think they just never bothered to really develop it. Even with her batons, Natasha never really used any of her signature weapons, which is too bad. And then they killed her. All right, so anyway, she's like, I sure am glad I was the guinea pig for all this cool stuff so you could go and give it to Florence Pugh. And that was very gracious of Scarlett Johansson. She didn't have to set up Florence Pugh so well in the Black Widow movie. But anyway, if you needed any evidence that Yelena isn't still totally redeemed, she threw Kate off the roof. And I don't think she knew all those wires were down there. But this was an impressive callback to Natasha's own fatal fall, with Clint and others worried about Kate following in Nat's footsteps perhaps too much as Clint's new partner. I mean, that callback to him looking over the edge and reaching down, chef's kiss! Mwah! It was beautiful. That's one of the reasons I think we had that flashback. That was really cool. But Kate, who clearly is his new partner and is still alive, she won't leave when he tells her to. She walks back up those stairs and comes back in, putting one of those trick arrows that they retrieved to amazing good use. And even though we had a lot of great trick arrows last episode, this one's actually my favorite so far. It was like a concussive blast one. It was very effective. I can't believe we've never seen that before. I loved it. I'd be like, where's that arrow been all my life? And Kate isn't afraid to put an arrow in someone, as she does with Echo, taking Echo out of the fight. Great end reveal for Yelena. She had her mask pulled off. Great reveal. They always do that with female characters. Like, who is it? She's like, it's me. And we're like, yay! Florence Pugh has a more natural look here. Not as much makeup as she had in the Black Widow movies. That's interesting because she was always so big on personal style. I mean, always. We spent one movie with her. But it made an impression. But she looks a bit more mature here as well, a little more serious. When she shakes her head at Kate, don't do it. It's a threat, not a helpful warning. I love that. And the way she jumps over the ledge, oh, another over the edge thing, right? And she's like, I'm fine. It's crazy. It's powerful and again, very graceful. I mean, more graceful than anything she did in Black Widow. Somebody's been training. This is the dangerous Black Widow that many of us have always wanted, and it's exciting stuff. I'm very excited. I mean, wow. We're gonna have. She's gonna be in the rest of the show. At least, partially. It's gonna be good times. I love it so much. Clint feels things are escalating very quickly here, and to be honest, they are. But he thinks that all of this is related to his past as Ronin coming back to haunt him, including someone hiring a Black Widow. He has no idea that Val is in the mix with her own plans that are building. All right, so what else happens this episode? Speaking of funny, a very funny sit down at the beginning that actually made up for no big sword fight. I guess not Chekhov's gun. Those swords are just going to sit on the wall. And I agree with some of you that Jack, aka the swordsman, might be the one who wore the Ronin suit and killed Echo's father with a sword, perhaps for Kingpin. But I'd still prefer it to be Kazi, as Tony Dalton's really starting to grow on me. I'm like, oh, this guy is cool. I hope he's just a charming rogue who has bad taste in business associates, as he launders money for the tracksuit mafia, and bad taste in fiancés as well, as Vera Farmiga doesn't just ask Hawkeye to stop working with her daughter, but to drop the case entirely, and then makes a suspicious, urgent phone call. Red flag, red flag. Oh yeah, and retrieving the trick arrows, I thought that was very, very funny and clever. Again, a great callback to that SNL episode, SNL sketch. I was actually kind of glad to see the LARPers return and expand, including a cool LGBT character wearing an amazing pink leather jacket, who's never going to see that bag again. Part of me hopes that she does. She has faith in the Hawkeyes. I hope they give it back to her. Speaking of threads, now we know where Kate and Clint get their new costumes. And I have to say, having seen the end product with another great banner this week on Disney+, the LARPers really upped their game, as that's better than anything I've seen any of them wearing on the show to date. I mean, why did Grills need a cool new costume when they're capable of doing this? In the comics, though, Grills dies, by the way. But with just 2 episodes left, I don't think we have time for that. And thank goodness, as Grills is awesome. Boomerang arrows, by the way, are also from the Hawkeye comic, but they actually use them, and they are no joke. Although I have no idea how you would realistically reuse goop arrows. I don't know how those are reusable. The Christmas party was fun, although it took up an awful lot of time. I'm like, we don't have this much time. And I loved all the little character moments throughout the episode. I thought some very funny lines, like when he said, I asked you to get my arrows not put on a play. I thought that was very funny. Breaking into Echo's apartment was also cool. I thought that was great. The strobe lights were not only very eerie, but we learned something about what a deaf alarm system looks like. I thought that was very cool. And speaking of, things for the deaf, for any of you, I tried to find out, are plants and holistic healing anything to do with the life of a deaf person? Because I thought that was an interesting choice for Echo, and I haven't seen her associated with plant. I was looking a little poison ivy like in that apartment, quite frankly. Or like Echo had a side business going, but I don't believe that was marijuana. But anyway, what did you think of this week's episode? Only 2 left to go. I don't know how they're going to wrap this all up. Quite frankly, I don't think they're going to. I think they're going to just kind of get started and then be like, Hawkeye season 2, maybe? I mean, do you think the watch is Laura's? I think it definitely is. Are you excited for more Yelena? Will Kingpin come back? I mean, I think he has to. I don't think Vincent D'Onofrio would be teasing like crazy on social media for his wrist. And since Laura seems to be Mockingbird, a former agent, well, a part of me feels like they're trying to do a little bit too much on this series, with Echo and Tracksuit Mafia and all that. And a Madame Mask, maybe, or whoever Vera Farmiga is. And then Swordsman, who doesn't really do any sword fighting, right? I mean, I thought for sure that he was going to have his moment at the end of last episode. So in an effort to get so much done, it kind of feels like maybe they aren't really doing any of it. But, we have 2 episodes left to go, so we might feel very differently at the end of this season. All right, so share your thoughts about this episode down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.